We are to love our neighbors, and one of the things we do when we get a vaccine is we not only protect ourselves, we protect our neighbors. Those caring and Christian words are true, but they also cost a man of faith his livelihood. Pastor Daniel Darling was fired after promoting vaccines in an op-ed and an interview, losing his high-ranking position at the National Religious Broadcasters, a major evangelical organization. Now, the NRB says Darling was fired because he violated the organization's policy of, quote, remaining neutral about COVID-19 vaccines. Pastor Darling, the former Senior Vice President of Communications for NRB, joins us now. Pastor Darling, thank you for joining us on New Day. Tell us what happened. How did the NRB tell you you were fired and why?
Well, thank you, John. I appreciate you having me on. And this is just a disagreement among good friends. These are my good friends at NRB, and it was an honor to serve them on behalf of Christian communicators. I didn't feel like I was violating a policy of neutrality because I just spoke about my own experience getting the vaccine, and I really tried to speak to some of the hesitancy and fears that many who have not gotten it still have, and encourage people to talk to their doctors. I don't believe the way to persuade people is to shame and to cancel, but I think the way to do that is to really have understanding. And so this is what I tried to do, and it's unfortunate that this happened. I didn't anticipate this being a national news story, and I wish my former employer well. I am overwhelmed by the support that I've received from evangelicals around the country, leaders and ordinary Christians who have really sympathized with this. And so I think really this is an opportunity for us to step back and look at and ask ourselves why this has divided Americans, and really why Christians are not unified at a time when we should be.
And why do you think that is? Why do you think Christians are not unified in an issue of vaccines during a pandemic that demonstrably and scientifically save lives?
Well, I actually think most evangelicals are not divided over this. A large percentage of evangelicals have received the vaccine, and then there's many who are hesitant, who are interested in getting it. And I just think we have to be patient with those who are working their way through this decision. Evangelicals are having the same conversations every other group is having around the dinner table and at work and at church, and really trying to navigate their way through a difficult time. And I think this is a time not for division, not for shaming, not for canceling, but a time for unity, a time for us to work with each other and to understand each other in a way that understands where the other person is coming from.
And I understand and appreciate the point you're trying to make. The way to address the hesitant is not by judging, it's by reaching out. But it's also by reaching out with facts in a patient way. And the fact is that you were fired for allegedly violating a neutrality policy on the issue of vaccines. Tell me, how does a statement of neutrality on the issue of vaccines help a community confront a pandemic? What drives that?
Well, I think they had really good intentions, and they didn't want to cause further division among Christians. The policy was somewhat vague, and considering that the CEO had promoted the vaccines a few months earlier in public official company statements. But nevertheless, I don't want to get into a back and forth with them. They're really good people. Mostly, I think we need to come together as a country, and really as Christians. One of the things that characterizes Christians and should characterize Christians is our unity. Jesus prayed in John 17 that his people would be one. And so I believe the vaccines are safe. I believe the vaccines are good. It's a bipartisan achievement. President Trump shepherded it through. President Biden is helping with the distribution. And if you've watched the process, it's had rigorous scientific protocols, and it's a uniquely American achievement, akin to what we did during World War II, our companies coming together. And so I just encourage folks to talk to their doctors, to sit down and make this decision themselves. I get why people have skepticism because there's widespread distrust in American institutions.
Yes.
Our public health officials have not always been consistent. And so people are very skeptical and hesitant. However, I've talked to quite a few folks who, after seeing my comments and reading the op-ed I did in USA Today, who said, you were really fair to us who were hesitant, and I'm really going to think through this. I'm going to talk to my doctor and see about getting vaccinated.
You were fair, and yet you were fired for being fair. Mark Twain wrote, you cannot pray a lie. Last time I checked, the Bible condemns lying over 100 times. It's in the Ten Commandments. A policy of neutrality on vaccines that punishes someone for speaking out about their truth, about the scientific truth, in a way that is not trying to divide but unite, what kind of message does that send?
Well, I don't want to get into a back and forth with them. I just think there's a lot of folks who
this
are,
happened to you. I mean, Pastor, I appreciate you trying to rise above. I appreciate that these are good people, your former colleagues. But nonetheless, you were fired for telling the truth. That's the bottom line.
Well, this is a disagreement among friends and disagreement among brothers and sisters in Christ. And I think mainly this should be an opportunity for us to step back and say, why are we letting these things that are complicated, and why are we letting these things divide us as Christians during these times? And we should have these conversations with each other and listen and learn and try to move forward.
That is one of the many things we should be taking away. But I will say again, sir, you are exemplifying grace in your desire to put this behind you. But you were, I think, in the eyes of any objective person, fired unjustly for not only telling your truth, but the truth about vaccines during a pandemic. Pastor Daniel Darling, thank you very much for joining us on New Day.
Thank you.